What's up, my friends? Welcome to the We're Not Wizards podcast. And today, we're talking to me.
Gabe, this isn't your show. This isn't your board game design lab thingy. Get off, get away. I'm going to just stop. Hello, everybody. Welcome to We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host while we're getting kind of like going through an extreme hostile takeover by somebody that obviously does lots of interview podcasts as well. And it's like, we're obviously going to be fighting, kind of asking each other questions as we go through this, because I'm joined.
That's right. It's more like a dueling podcast than anything.
A dueling of banjos. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Alabama, man, so I know all about that.
You've probably got a banjo ready to go. He's got one in the chamber, just ready to pop that banjo out.
That's right, just ready to go.
What's that? You asked for banjos, son? I got your banjos right here.
Oh, get her done, all right.
We can talk about this all evening. That's fine with me. So joining me is...
We'll be finer than a frog hair split 4 ways, tell you what.
You got to get good eating that crocodile over there. You bring that gator right in and let's cook us up a storm.
Okay, now we're getting down in Louisiana. All right, we're getting down to Cajun country, eating crocodiles.
There you go. Joining me today from Barrett Publishing and also the Board Game Design Lab is Gabe Barrett. And as you can tell, we've obviously been drinking since about 1:30 this afternoon, which is pretty impressive considering... He's very, very far away, so the time zones mean we've been drinking for about past 27 and a half hours, which is always very, very good.
Yeah, give or take.
So
we're actually doing really well if that's the case.
I'm actually just leaning against the wall, which is good, which is why you're glad that the camera's not on again. The reason that we do this is... well, first of all, hello to everybody out there. Thanks for joining us. The reason that we do this is because we are through episode 200. I will not be stopped. I cannot be stopped. And it's enough about me. It's all about you good people that are listening to us out there. And so in order to keep you happy, in order to keep you safe, in order to keep you warm, we have decided to bring you the best possible content we can, which means inviting people like Gabe onto the show. Because Gabe's not just here to sit back and chinwag and talk about the weather and politics and stuff like that, because we're not going to do that anywhere. He is pointing the finger, but he's not pointing the finger at people. He's pointing the finger down onto the table, and he's using that finger, and he's going to be flicking, and he's going to be flicking some dice. And when he's going to be flicking some dice, he's going to be taking over systems and planets, and he's going to be fighting battles, because he's here today to talk about the game that he's bringing to Kickstarter called the Final Flicktier. But, as always, we don't want to just have him coming on like a movie star on a chat show and talk about his book or his film. He's going to be giving a little bit back to us, and he's going to be telling us a little bit all about him good self. So, first of all, thank you for coming on, sir. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. Really appreciate you having me on.
No, I have, as I say, it was a kind of a chance conversation that we had. I think we kind of drifted past each other very, very quickly on kind of like the Facebook when you were talking about I think kind of like previews and stuff like that for the Final Flicktier, and I just kind of went, "Hey, want to do a podcast?" And you went, "I already do podcasts. Get out of here, young boy, or I'll set the dogs on you." But so there you go.
I'm not sure that's entirely how it went down. I was actually excited. I prefer podcasts. I would prefer to go on podcasts because this is kind of my element. Even though I'm used to being the one asking the questions, this is kind of fun for me to just be able to show up and answer some.
I know.
But no, I was really excited to be able to sit down and talk to you.
Well, obviously, I do. You're talking about not having to bother doing prep. As you can probably tell, I haven't bothered to do any prep.
You don't have to tell people. You can at least let the illusion stand that you come in with 47 questions, and maybe we'll get through 10 of them. Or,
There's a tree. I've got an intricate conversation tree where based on the conversation goes. So usually as soon as I stop recording a show, I'm on preparing the questions for the next show, and no two set of questions are the same. That's just absolute nonsense. Obviously, you've been involved in this fine hobby for some time, but how did you, we want to find out how you got into the speckled dice of the past before you grabbed them in your hands of the present and you're rolling them into the spaceship attack of the future. So how did you get into the hobby?
Yeah, definitely. So it was kind of a long, winding road. Like a lot of other people, I played games as a kid, but, just Monopoly and normal stuff. I like chess, played a lot of chess in high school. And then once I got into college, it got a little more real. Started playing D&D and really had a great time playing 4th edition. I know a lot of people hate 4th edition for various reasons, but that was what I got into, and I really enjoyed it. I loved it a lot and had a lot of fun. And then started playing games like Catan, and then got into Magic. And Magic, I was in there for a while and spent way too much money on way too many cards and building all these decks and having a lot of fun and just hanging out with friends. And then started finding more and more hobby games. And then just started designing my own. Just figured, hey, I could maybe do this myself. I'm the kind of person that I like to create more than consume. And so whether it's writing or anything, other kind of artistic or creative thing, I enjoy doing it more than I enjoy consuming it. And so started making a lot of really bad board games that were just awful. Thinking back to it now, it's like, wow, that was so bad. And just kind of did it off and on, and just enjoyed it. It wasn't really anything I wanted to pursue. It was just something I had fun with.
So dialing it back then.
Yeah.
Let's go back to your D&D, okay?
Okay.
What's wrong with 4th edition? I mean, why do you feel you're a champion of it, and why do you think everybody else kind of hates it at the time?
Well, if you go online and you see like any of the forums or any of the like YouTube videos about D&D, there's a lot of people who just really didn't like 4th edition, and it's partially because they tried to make 4th edition more video game like, try to appeal to that World of Warcraft crowd a little bit more. That's what I've been told. That's what people have said. I haven't talked to the designer of the game or anything, but that just seems the way that it was put together. And so like the way the rules were written and the way things worked, and just kind of they simplified a lot of different things from 3.5. It had a lot of stuff going on, and then in 4th they streamlined a lot of things, and in my opinion made it a lot more easy to play. But that was not necessarily what people of D&D wanted, and so that's why 5th edition kind of went back to more. It's a lot more similar to 3.5 than 4th ever was, and so. But I enjoyed the more video game like style of it, where you had all these different cards you could print out, and these are your abilities and just the way the game worked. I really enjoyed it, and partially that's because that was the first version I ever played. And so that's part of it too. I'm sure if I had played version 3 or 3.5 first, I'd have been like, oh, 4th edition sucks. But I enjoyed it. It's kind of like, I've actually, this is crazy, but I've talked to people who didn't see the Star Wars movies in order. They actually started with episode 1 as opposed to 4, and they really enjoyed episode 1 and 2 and 3, and they're like, 4 and 5 and 6, they were okay. And it's like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with, there's not possible. You're out of your mind. We're not friends anymore. But I feel like there's some kind of a thing about, like, whatever you start with, you kind of, that's kind of, you enjoy it, even if it's just nostalgia looking back. That's kind of where you began.
It's your comfort thing. I think that you surround yourself by things that comfort you, and if something triggers back memories, especially if they're good memories, like music. Yeah. I can tie music with the video games I was playing at the time. So I can say, I was playing, when I was playing the Mega Drive, I was mostly listening to Public Enemy, and sometimes if I listen to a particular Public Enemy track, then I get a memory of a Mega Drive game coming out of the blue. Usually shoot 'em up, I have no idea, it just comes from nowhere. But I can see where that comes.
Hilarious. That's awesome.
No, I mean, that is just, it's kind of, I have a very kind of audio, I don't know if there's a word for it, audiological or something memory, which if somebody says something to me, I'm pretty good at kind of remembering it, which is pretty cool. But then a lot of my memory is based on sounds as opposed to sometimes visual stuff, which is a bit weird. So, but no, I can see the point of when you're first stepping into something, if that's what you've known, then that's what you like. And you got to remember, there's a whole raft of these kids that were born in the early, the kids that were born in the 2000s, and that new Star Wars, that new flashy, computer graphic, brilliant looking Star Wars, that was the way it was. And the same nowadays, if you look at it, there'll be a lot of kids that'll be growing up with The Force Awakens as their first Star Wars, which is really even weirder, because you're kind of like getting into it kind of afterwards. But why, I mean, did you GM when you were D&Ding? No, you just... No,
I was a Dragonborn warlord, and trying to remember what my name was, but anyway, it was just a really cool character. I had another friend that he DM'd for us, and there were 3 players, and then the dungeon master. So 4 of us would get together once or twice a week for anywhere between 4 and 10 hours. It seems like, because just the way that game drags out sometimes. But it was a ton of fun.
And you moved in. You mentioned you went into Catan. I mean, I don't know. Is there anybody that doesn't own Catan? I mean, is the guy that sells Catan, does he even bother selling Catan? Is it like the guy that sells Coke? Does he just go about saying, Do you want some Catan in the board game shop? Because of course I want some Catan. Are you absolutely joking? You're being absolutely mad. I don't have a copy of Catan.
Well, I don't either. Honestly. I have several friends that do though, and so I guess if I ever wanted to play it, I could just.
Yeah, I don't. It's the same reason. I don't have it because if I wanted to get my hands on it, I just have to make a call. Basically,
right.
I just have to make a call. During that time, though, I mean, the formative kind of board game years. You mentioned you being a creator. Were you dabbling in the kind of the white pieces of paper and the dice and the pens? Did you? You mentioned was it when you were getting into the board games that you were spending some time kind of creating some, as you said, bad games yourself, or was that after a while you were in the kind of the hobby?
Yeah, that was probably not too long after, maybe just a couple of years of playing Magic and D&D and stuff. I started just, like you said, cards and just writing down little ideas and creating cards and creating boards off, poster board and just trying to figure out zombie games. I don't know why I really wanted to make a zombie game, so I made like 4 really bad zombie games in succession. And it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot without realizing it. It's one of those things, like I wasn't aware of the big hobby industry in general. I just knew of a handful of games. I didn't know anything about Board Game Geek or any of the stuff going on online. I just knew a handful of games, and so I just started kind of making my own versions of them or trying to make different versions. And it was very interesting. I kind of look back and see how it progressed in spite of like very little knowledge of what was actually going on. Like I didn't have any podcasts I was listening to. I didn't have anybody I was following. It was just kind of, I think this would be cool. Let's try it out.
Yeah, it's the accessibility of the hobby, though. I kind of often use this, I use this analogy far too much, but for some people, getting into the hobby is like that opening the door scene in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where Gene Wilder opens the door onto the garden, and all of a sudden there's like masses. I know people that have played very few board games and have no idea of the massive amount of board games that are kind of out there. And then you do get some people that they stumble into the hobby and they say, I know, we need a game which is all about zombies on boards, and it's some kind of, I don't know, we could have a side at the end of it. We could call it Zombie Side. How about that? And then you say, well, we could, you know what I mean? Because unless you're involved in the hobby for some time, it's kind of weird you can jump in there and go, well, I don't think anybody's kind of done this type of game before, and except these 15 previous ones. But again, that comes down to the kind of the accessibility. Was the content creation, is that been something you've been doing for a while? Did that start to go kind of hand in hand with the kind of the game creation kind of side? What kind of got you into that side of things?
Yeah, so the podcast and everything came a good bit later. So I started making games probably like 2009, 2010, somewhere around in there, right about the time I was getting done with college. And then I didn't really think much about board games after I graduated. I was working and I was, trying to figure out life and how to be a real person, so to speak. And I didn't play many games. All my friends, it's kind of funny. We all started at the same time, but I graduated a good bit ahead of them. They were on the 7-year plan.
Yeah.
But they're not doctors. It's just one of those things. And so I graduated before all my friends did. And so I went out into the real world. And so I kind of put my Magic cards, on the shelf and didn't really play much for a while. And then it wasn't until probably, 4 or 5 years later. Yeah, 3, 4, 5, probably 5 years later or so, that I found the Game Crafter, and I started finding all these like really cool resources to actually make games and for them to look good and to be able to print them out and see it as an actual product. And that was a big moment. The Game Crafter changed my life in a lot of ways as far as like what it led me to. And that sounds kind of crazy. The Game Crafter changed my life, but you know what I mean. And it kind of led me to really start thinking about designing games for real and to start getting into the hobby. And then maybe a couple years after that, I moved to Honduras, and all of a sudden my opportunities to be in the hobby were a lot more limited. There's not too many game stores in Honduras. It's very difficult to get games here. So it's not, I started thinking, gosh, I want to be part of the industry in some way. And so I started thinking all the ways you can do that. Well, playtesting. Okay, that's kind of hard to do that from Honduras. And I didn't have very many people around me that even spoke English, and so let alone wanted to play games. It's like, okay, well, playtesting's hard to do for people. What about like reviews? Okay, well, it's very difficult and expensive to get games here. And at the time, I was living in a house, and my literal address, my actual address on all my government papers and everything, was the yellow house on the corner near the horse field across from the soccer field. In this town that I was living in. Like, that was, there's no street numbers, there's no street names. Like, I lived on a dirt road. Yeah, and so, like, it was funny, if you ever had to have somebody, like, deliver something to you, like, if you bought a piece of furniture at a store and they were going to bring it out to you on a truck, they would hand you a blank sheet of paper, and they would say, draw us a map to get to your house. It's like, oh, okay. And so,
what happens if the color of the house changed?
Well, that would be impressive. If I bought a piece of furniture on Monday and I painted my house on Tuesday, it'd probably be poor timing.
Exactly, good like that. Well, I'm really excited about getting my next Kickstarter pledge. But, first of all, I really should give my house needs a nice new coat of paint. And it's like, where's my package going? It's like, well, it looked orange to me.
Right.
It looked orange. Orange house. I don't even know how you kind of fill in kind of postcode stuff. Because usually Kickstarter, when you fill in an address thing, it goes, we found this one instead. Right. Is this what you mean? And you're just like, no, that's the greenhouse. And it's and that's next to the cow field. And there's no, that's near the
That's Jorge's house. That's not my house.
Exactly. And I tell you what, they're getting mighty peeved about getting all these Kickstarters through. But then on the other hand, he is coming around the game club kind of every Tuesday to play games with me, so there's hope for them yet.
Yeah. And so I was struggling. I was like, well, how can I be part of the industry? And I thought, well, what if I did a podcast?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, I don't, like, what do I want to do? And I started thinking about all the podcasts that I was listening to and what I enjoyed about them, what I wished was better. And I was really wishing that there was a design-focused podcast that got very specific on key topics. Right, they would interview one guest, and they would, and talk about one issue, one idea, one big picture thing, one concept, and nothing else. We weren't going to talk about the games I've been playing, or hey, what's politics, things going on in the media. No, we're just going to talk about this one thing, and we're going to talk about it for 45 minutes, and then I do other episodes for other ideas and topics. And so I launched that. I reached out to a lot of people in the industry, and they came on the show. It was kind of crazy. I had all these people say yes, unexpectedly so. And so I launched it, I don't know, a couple years ago now, at the end of 2016, I guess. Yeah, I'm right at 100 episodes at this point. And so it's just been a crazy ride.
It's kind of weird, isn't it? I had an idea to do the same thing, to keep on one topic, but I just can't stay on one topic. Do you know what I mean? I just...
No, I understand. It's hard.
If people are going like, yeah, so let's talk about different ways to move. And it's like, no, let's talk about the last pair of shoes we bought, because that's fun as well. And that's the way, what I mean? What's your favourite jam?
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. And so I can do that. But then on the other side of it, I must admit, and I still are constantly surprised at this, when you send an email to a designer, developer, kind of anyone involved in the hobby, and they just come back and go, yeah, we can, I'm not going to say no, am I? I'm not going to be the person that said no. Are you still, I'm still surprised, but I don't know how you feel, if you still kind of get that kind of, I'm going to go fishing and see what I can find, and then some people that say kind of yes, and you're just like, wow, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure. It's really cool that, reaching out to people who are perfect strangers, who I've never met, and saying, hey, would you mind giving me an hour of your life and talking about this thing for other people to listen to us? It's still a crazy concept, right? Especially people who are very busy and are very popular, and, it's just been nuts. And then Eric Lang, I interviewed Eric Lang, I guess this was a couple months ago. I was at Dice Tower Con, and I'd been trying to get him on the show for a while, but he's hard to catch. He's super busy, and I feel like most messages don't even make it to him. His inbox is probably crazy full all the time. And so I ran into him at the convention. I was like, "Hey man, I'd love to get you on the show." And he said, "Well, how about right now?" I was like, "Oh, that's not what I meant." But let me go get my microphone, and yes, we're going to record this episode right now. And so it was like a 24-minute episode of me and him just finding this not super quiet, not super secluded, just kind of place at the convention, and me asking him a handful of questions just kind of off the top of my head. And, it was awesome. It was one of my favorite episodes.
He's on the
but
list.
It's crazy.
I mean, Eric's on the list to kind of get on.
Yeah.
Stephen Bonacore as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just these guys, the kind of you could argue, some of the kind of the founding fathers. But then it's like cool. It's like I was like, I got Root, and one day I will stop talking about Root, everybody, but not until you've played it, because I'll stop talking when you've all played Root. And then we can stop talking about it. But it's kind of like sending a tweet to kind of like Leather Games and going, I really like Root. And I said, I'd love to speak to you. And they go, yeah, sure. Just DM us and we'll get it sorted out. And I'm going, what? I don't even know what to say. And then I was like, it's like one of these things. Have you ever done this where you've like went to write an email or a DM? And you went, don't write something stupid, don't write something stupid, don't write something stupid. So what I did is I sent different animal emojis instead, and then I felt better. I said,
as long as it works.
I said like a rabbit one and a fox one, and I couldn't find a mouse one. So then it's like, I really like your game. It's like, try to be the consummate professional. Would you like come on show? And it's like, oh, what?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I accidentally sent him a picture of my house, because I'd been decorating. I was like, what am I doing? Stop. And he still says, okay, what to do is, first of all, calm down and take a breath. And then secondly, email us here and we'll get that sorted out. Yeah. And that's kind of, that's the kind of the coolness about the way the kind of the hobby kind of stands.
Oh, yeah.
Are you still got people on the list? I mean, is there still the folk that you were kind of like, I'd love to just get 5 minutes of this person's time to, just sit down, have a chat with them and kind of chew the fat kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to have, there's a handful that I've reached out to in the past, and some have just not had the time. They were, working on, like they're in the middle of a launch or something like that, and so they just didn't have the time. And some I just can't seem to get a hold of. A few of those, Nikki Valens, who's done some of the best games ever made. She used to work for Fantasy Flight, now she's kind of off doing her own thing. Love to get her on the show. Love to have Ignacy Shevicek at some point just to kind of talk about he is a wealth of information. You could talk about anything with that guy. Scott Alms is another one I've been trying to get on the show for a while that I would just love to kind of hear his thoughts on like how to make really epic tiny games, right? How to pack a lot of game into a small box. Like how do you do that? Like what does that process look like? And so there's a pretty good list. I've got a Evernote document of a giant list. I started making way back when I started the podcast, and I just keep adding to it. And every time every time a person comes on the show that was on that big master list, I get to check them off, and it's a really cool feeling to kind of hit that check and go, okay, all right, that one's done. Now let's move on to these other 50. See if I can get them on the show.
I'm the same. I've got Keep on Google, and I just tick them off as they go. And then there's some people that say, yeah, I'll definitely get you on, and then the kind of things drift and go past, and it's like, oh, I don't know if I should really contact them again, because I kind of contacted them last time, and then it kind of went a bit quiet, and now I feel embarrassed, but it's all fine. But usually you just contact them and say, yeah, these things happen. I think I spend most of my time introducing people by saying, we've been talking for a long time and this has finally happened, kind of thing. So like with you, it's like, with yourself though, it was kind of like 10 days ago. It was just like, hi, how's it going? It's kind of like, would you like to come on the show?
It worked out.
That's kind of fine. But obviously the media side of things has kept going, and you've been, as you say, you've been collecting guests like Ash collects Pokemon.
Yeah, gotta catch them all, man. You have to. That's a good way to look at it.
It is.
I've got my game design decks, I guess, of telling me all the new designers I need to talk to, and I just go find them out in the wild.
Exactly. It's like sitting down, Eric Lang having a picnic, and all of a sudden he gets knocked on the back of the head. He's like, what the hell is this? What are you trying to do?
Hey, you want to come on my show?
Why are you throwing your Pikachu cuddly toy at me? How old are you? Kind of thing. Leave me alone. Right. Would you branch out into kind of other topics? I mean, would you bring on, would you consider going beyond the kind of the designer developers into kind of like the arts, the creative side? Because we've had guys from like Crowdox on. I've had Panda Games have been on. I've had Games Quest on. Is that stuff that you've looked at as well? Have you had people like that on the show, kind of too? The kind of
Yeah,
service.
I've had a lot of people. I had people like you're saying. Yeah, people from Panda, and manufacturing side. I've had publishers on. I've had artists on. Adrian Azale came on a while back, and it was like an hour-and-a-half episode, and it was phenomenal. Just talking about art and graphic design and how to work with an artist and the contracts and like just tons of information just about art. And so, yeah, I've tried to branch out and kind of cover the full gamut of game design. Because one thing I love about this hobby is it's so many things going on at the same time. There's so many different facets. It's not just one thing or two things. It's 100 things. And so it's just a lot to think about. It's a really cool puzzle in my mind. Like when you're creating a game, it's this really fun puzzle to kind of put all these different pieces together where you're talking about just the design and design theory and then the playtesting side of things and the art and the graphic design and, publishing and pitching a game. Like there's so many things. And I've tried to talk to a lot of different people from a lot of different spots in the industry and get different perspectives and different advice on all those different topics.
Do you feel less under pressure to kind of chase the kind of the current hotness as well because you're kind of like approaching it from a topical kind of point of view? I mean, is that kind of like a decision to kind of, I guess, give you kind of breathing space? I mean, one of the reasons we do what we do is that I'm hoping that, if somebody wants to listen to a John Gilmore episode, they can go back and do that. If they want to listen to Jamie Stegmaier talking about stuff or Ed O'Barra, they can do that. And while we do eventually kind of talk about their game or their project, a lot of the time it's kind of like the stuff is kind of like pretty kind of timeless that people can like pick up and they can go back into kind of like at any time. And I guess it's the same with yourself, especially if you're kind of picking the design topics, I guess. But saying that, do you feel the need then to keep up with what's kind of happening in the hobby? Do you keep an eye on kind of like the Kickstarters and this Kickstarter trends and stuff like that, just to see what's happening when you're kind of looking for guests and the like?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, you always want to stay on top of like new things coming on, going on in the industry of new ways of doing things. Like when deck building first happened, right? It would have been great to have, obviously my podcast wasn't going on 10 years ago, but like to have Down on X Vaccarino come on and be like, hey, tell me about this new thing that didn't exist before that now it does, right? Like that's amazing. Or finding people who have done really well on Kickstarter who we say have come out of nowhere. I mean, we all know it takes 10 years to become an overnight success, but getting those kind of people on that apparently come out of nowhere, that seem to just show up all of a sudden, and then just talking to them, say, how'd you do it? Like, what did it look like? What was your process? What was your strategy for marketing, whatever? But just, so to a certain extent, going with, the hotness, so to speak, and trying to stay on top of the new things. But at the same time, a lot of the stuff's timeless. Talking to somebody about their process of playtesting, I mean, that's not going to be that much different today than it will be probably 4 or 5 years from now. Maybe it'll be a little more digital 4 or 5 years from now, but the general process is not that different. And so that's one good advantage. I don't have to just chase the latest and greatest and try to scoop anybody else or try to be on the cutting edge. I can kind of take my time, have a little more fun.
I mean, I mean, we get a mixture. We do get, like, obviously people kind of promoting the Kickstarter. And then we just bring somebody on and just say, well, let's have a chat. And then sometimes I'll bring people on that have been on the show before that were talking about their Kickstarter, and now we just bring them back just to have a general kind of chat and conversation about kind of what's been kind of going on. In terms of kind of like the designs and stuff, have you heard of the Keyforge kind of series, which seems to be these kind of
with Richard Garfield.
What do you think of it?
I think it is a publishing and manufacturing feat of just amazingness. I don't know how in the world they're doing it. And if anybody not familiar, it's basically every deck of cards is different from every single other deck of cards that you buy. But I don't know, it's crazy. And they've got another version where it's like the adventure game. Did you see that too? So it's the exact same style where every pack you buy comes with a totally different adventure and it's got different stuff going on. I have no idea how they do it. But I am very amazed. And, of course, it was Richard Garfield to figure it out. Of all the people in the world to figure it out, he'd be the one. Absolutely. Just because the way his brain works and kind of his he is so ahead of everybody else as far as the way he thinks about games. And just takes such a scientific approach to it, but also just a loving and creative approach as well. And it's amazing. I can't wait to check it out.
I'm interested to see. I'm obviously I'm an older, cynical, bitter and twisted man. So I'm the cynical side of me is kind of like, I'm hoping it's kind of like their kind of, I guess, from a cosmetic point of view, they're all different. But therefore, when it comes down to it, you're all going to end up kind of playing the same kind of core game as you go. I'm just really interested to see how one deck plays against another when they're completely different, and how you're almost like saying to people, you have to learn what you're doing. You can't sit and really learn from other people, which is an interesting way to approach a game, because if you think about it, mostly the first tactics that you learn in any type of game are usually usually based off the person that's got the most experience on the game, or the person that usually wins. You kind of go back and you see, well, what tactics did they use to win? And then with this, it's like you're actually going to have to sit down and decide and find out and explore what in your deck is going to kind of work the best for you, which is really, really interesting. I'm wondering how many people they will embrace that. I'm wondering how many people might play 3 games and get absolutely wiped to the floor and then go, you know what, I'll put it on the shelf next to the rest of my Magic cards that I've kind of got. But we'll just kind of see, you know. Do you think, is that a dangerous place that we're heading though in board game design, that we're kind of, there will be a raft of maybe companies looking for gimmicks to sell a game alongside the gameplay kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that's been the case forever. I mean, ever since board games were a thing. Think about Mousetrap.
Yeah.
Mousetrap was a giant gimmick that pretended to be a game. And so that's been the case forever in the mass market side of things, and even the hobby side. There's so many games that are coming out every year. I mean, 625 games came out at Gen Con this year. So in one weekend, over 600 games came out, right? And so you're going to have to do something to stand out. You're either going to have to already have a crowd you've built up over a certain amount of time that it just takes to build a foundational crowd to back your games and buy your games, or you're going to have something that just blows people away. And the Keyforge thing, the way this game works, or the way you acquire new cards and stuff like that, it's really cool. Is it a gimmick? Yeah, absolutely. But it also makes it stand out from other games that are very similar, right? And so I think that's another thing with the market getting so saturated with themes and mechanisms that are very similar. There's lots of zombie games, there's lots of worker placement games, that kind of thing. You have to figure out a way to set yourself apart, and a gimmick's a great way to do that. Now, your game can't be just a gimmick, right? That might get people to the table, but they're not going to stay, so to speak. They might play your game, but they're not going to buy your game, or they might buy it and then go, whatever, I'll trade it. And so you're not going to be able to last. It's not a long-term thing to have a bunch of gimmicky kind of stuff, but it can at least get people in the door. And then if you've got a really good game to back up the gimmick, I think it's a really cool way to go.
Yeah. I'm kind of, I guess legacy games kind of spring to mind, because I think for a while everybody was going to be like, everything is going to be legacy. And then
until people figured out how hard that is to do. It's so difficult. And then there's still less than 10 legacy games on the market right now.
And I feel sorry for
because it's so difficult.
I feel sorry for Seafall, because I was looking at it on Amazon. I was like, oh, you may like Charterstone, and I was like, oh, Charterstone, and it's like $60. And then I was looking at what else? I was looking at Pandemic Legacy Season 1, $60. And then I was looking at Pandemic Season 2, $75. And then they had Seafall sitting there with a bit of cardboard in front of it that said, "We'll play for food." And I think it was something like $25. And I felt I felt almost so sorry for it, Gabe. I put it in my basket for about 20 seconds, and I went, "Do you know what? How bad can this be? How bad can this actually be?" But I think when your precedent is Pandemic Legacy, that's a really, really hard thing to hit. It's a really, really hard thing to kind of hit.
And Seafall was actually just a victim of circumstance, right? So Rob Davio, he did risk Legacy and kind of opened up this whole idea of this as a possible genre. And then he started working on Seafall. And Seafall, it's not like he had other Legacy games to look at to say, oh, okay, this is how you do it, and this is how you play test it, this is how you create. He was inventing all this stuff as he went. He was literally Thomas Edison finding 9,000 ways to not make a light bulb, and trying to figure out the one way to do it. And then during that time, he also started working on Pandemic Legacy. And so Pandemic Legacy was developed much later than Seafall. It just came out first. And so that was everybody's first real taste at what a Legacy game could be. And so it was built on the back of Seafall. but Seafall came out after it. And so it was just really just unfortunate victim of circumstance. And Seafall, I mean, Rob, when he talks about how, it was a little bit too bloated, and there were certain things about it that he really wishes he could have changed, and looking back and different things he would have done, things he would have done differently in the design process. But Seafall got us to Charterstone. Seafall got us to all these really cool Legacy games that are coming out now, whether it's Betrayal Legacy or Machikoro Legacy. Like, what in the world? It's kind of crazy.
It's a card game. Come on, what are you doing? Well, how's it Legacy? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. I'm really interested to see how they're going to handle that. Yeah. But so Seafall is what got us here, right? Seafall was the 9,000, 10,000 ways to not really do it the best, and then we figured it out. Since then, a much better way to build that light bulb.
I've reminded of somebody that is talking about they don't like Machikoro at all, and they says, you want to turn that into a Legacy game, the easiest way is just to take that deck and just rip it all up anyway. And I was like, that's harsh.
All right, that's one way to do it.
Okay, all right. Do you want to point to the bit on the Machikoro box where it hurt you, kind of thing?
That's right.
Yeah, it's like, okay, right, that's awkward. Thanks very much for that.
Yep.
But I mean, so you're busy. I mean, obviously you're busy. You're interviewing all these, designers, developers. You're building up the brand. Board Game Design Lab's getting a name for itself. People are tuning in and listening and things like that. What makes you decide? Right, okay, I am actually let's go and make something now. How did you end up going kind of down that kind of pathway then, Gabe?
Yeah, so I'd continue to dabble here and there and trying to make games and trying to enter into like GameCrafter contests and have some fun in the hobby. And but around the same time that I started doing the podcast in a serious way and going, okay, I'm gonna devote time to this. This is gonna be another job, right? I'm gonna schedule this. This is gonna be a real thing. It's not gonna just be something I do for a month and quit. This is gonna be something real. And around the same time, I thought I'm gonna do the same thing with game design. And I'm gonna design games that are finished and I'm proud of, and I playtest and blind playtest, like go through the whole process. Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can really do this. And so the first game I made was a really fun game, in my opinion. It's this college football game. And it's with a publisher right now, just being reviewed, and hopefully it gets signed. Hopefully it kind of moves on in that process. Been waiting to hear back about that, but that's where it kind of started. I said, all right, I'm going to make a game start to finish. I'm going to do the whole thing, and I'm going to put it out there and try to get it published. And so since that one, I've been working on several other ones, and got a couple games that are with publishers right now, just under review, and they're checking them out and giving feedback and that kind of thing. And then I got this other game that's going to Kickstarter here pretty soon as well. And so that's kind of where it started. The podcast and the being serious about game creation kind of happened at around the same time.
Is it then that because you've had the good relationship with the publishers, has that given you the confidence to actually approach them? Because I'll be honest, I mean, the number of creators I speak to who say, right, I've done this, I've gone down the journey, I've then dabbled myself, and now I'm going to Kickstarter. But you seem to be approaching it from, well, I've gone down this journey, I've played a lot of games, I've made the decision, but now I'm actively kind of pitching to publishers. So, I mean, has kind of being involved, speaking to these, speaking to the publishers, speaking to designers, has that given you the confidence to kind of try the different route? Because as I say, I don't hear many people that say, right, I'm getting this ready, and then I'm going to spend the next kind of 2 years kind of pitching it to different publishers to see if they'll kind of go ahead and print it for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely helps. Like anything else, you build relationships and you get more comfortable with those people, and it's a lot easier to pick up the phone or send them an email because you know them, they know you, and neither one of you are crazy people, right? I'm not just somebody spamming your company and that kind of thing, and so that helps. And it also helps just get in the door with other people. And so the company that my football game is with right now, I didn't know that person until someone who came on my podcast. As he's a designer, he introduced me. Right, he said, we got to talk one day. He said, "Hey, what games you working on?" I told him, I said, "Oh, you should talk to this guy." And he kind of set me up with a quick introduction, and then it went from there. And so it's not only just meeting people in the industry and getting comfortable; it's also meeting people through people in the industry and kind of building out that network.
Yeah, I mean, Emma May, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago, that was her kind of thing. Is that she's very good at networking and introducing kind of one person to another, and kind of facilitating that, and then just kind of like stepping away and just kind of letting whatever kind of happen, even if she does think pogs are really, really good. And she'll get that, and yes, I am bringing up Pogs on somebody else's episode just for you, Emma. Thank you very, very much. But I mean, is that then exciting? I mean, it must be exciting then. I mean, this must be kind of exciting times because you've gone from being the guy that's writing on the white paper to actually having kind of publishers kind of reviewing it, and actually somebody sitting potentially going to turn around and say, "I'll tell you what, Gabe, yeah, we'll sign this for you. We'll produce X number of copies, and you just leave it with us." So are you going to be? This is interesting. Are you going to be then involved in the ongoing development process, or are you looking at these guys? You'll give them over the game, and then they'll finish off the kind of the process itself. I mean, where are you with, say, like the college football game, for instance? Is that a fully fledged, fully up and running kind of game that people can dive in and play, or are you expecting the publisher to bring in maybe some development help to potentially develop some things further on it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the best things about working with a publisher is that you get fresh eyes on a game, and you get people looking at it from a product standpoint, not just a game standpoint, as far as like, how much is this going to cost? What do we need to cut? What do we need to change? What's the art going to look like? That kind of thing. So you get a lot of really great opinions coming in, and, which makes sense. It's their money. They're putting up the risk and their money, and so, of course, they get a pretty good opinion in the matter. But with the football game, it's done. Like, I don't remember the last time I play tested it and thought, man, I need to change something. Like, it's gone through so many play tests, and it's just been clicking on all cylinders for a while, a good long while. I added some things recently just to make it a little more fun. Like, I changed the start player marker. It used to be just this little token, but I found a company that mass produces foam fingers, and they make some that are tiny that just go on one finger. It's like a 5-inch tall foam finger. Yeah. And I was like, that is my new start marker. And so that's the new start player token, right? And so I've done a couple things like that just to enhance the game and just make it a little more thematic. But yeah, it's done for all intents and purposes. And some of the other games I'm working on that I've sent out to publishers, those are 90% done, and I just it's almost there. It just needs a little bit of development or a little more, a few more people to kind of look at it and help me out with. But yeah, the football one is done, and then some of the other ones almost there.
Okay. Is that strange, kind of like giving it to somebody else? Then they might come back and say, actually, we're going to change this bit and this bit and this bit, and being able.
No, I love it. Yeah. I love the collaboration of it. This is a team game. I'm a football guy, and so my mentality is team sport, and. A lot of these games I've been working on, I've had a friend here in Honduras who has a really good mind for development and has helped me out a lot. He asks really good questions about games. He's like, well, have you thought about this? Or why'd you do it this way instead of that way? And he brings up really good questions. And so he and I have worked together to kind of me design and him develop several of my games over the last year or so. And I just love that. It's so much better to have somebody to work with as opposed to just kind of guessing by yourself, and sometimes and feeling like, man, I don't know. Is this right? It's nice to have somebody to kind of bounce ideas off of.
So then we move on to the game that you are bringing to Kickstarter, the Final Flicktier. I'm just trying to think inspiration for that. Sounds like I've not heard that that kind of phrase used ever in any type of space program at all. Was there any type of inspiration that you drew?
Never heard Final Frontier.
No.
Anyone boldly going anywhere like that. Yeah, the title actually is what came to me almost first. It's kind of funny. I was actually interviewing a person from my own show, and he had this really cool dexterity game that he had been working on called Dino Dunk, where it's dinosaurs playing basketball, and you're flicking your dinosaur around this neoprene mat, and you're trying to score. And I was like, this is really cool. And during that episode, we got to talking about other dexterity games and how they work and all that stuff. And during that episode, I remember writing down just a quick note, and I wrote down 4X dexterity game, like a 4X space game, but with dexterity. Like that's got to be a thing. And I went online, and there's only been one, maybe two other games like this, and none of them are on the market at the time, now. And so I was like, this needs to be a thing. And so I started working on it, and it's just been a lot of fun to develop and kind of create, and it's gone through so many versions. It's become the dice flicking game that it is now, but it's been a lot of fun.
Is it the biggest game that you've made to date, then?
Oh, no, this is much smaller. I've got a superhero game that has a lot of moving parts that I'm still working on, and got some publishers that have talked to me about wanting to look at it and see a prototype. But it's got a ton of stuff going on. The space game is actually very streamlined. It's a 60-minute game. It's mostly dice and a couple neoprene mats and cards. And anytime you make a dexterity game, it needs to be simple, right? You can't have too many things going on with dexterity. You can't have a 2-hour dexterity. I guess you could, but most people don't want to play a 2-hour dexterity
my
game.
Arms, my hands.
Right. Well, especially if you're not very good at it, you don't want to keep that process going. And also finding ways to mitigate the dexterity elements, so people that maybe aren't quite as skilled with flicking things can still compete and still have a lot of fun. But no, this game is definitely on the light to medium. I'd say it's a medium weight game, but kind of a little on the lighter medium side.
Okay. I mean, is it kind of? I mean, have you done other dexterity games before? Or is this kind of like your completely new venture for you?
So I've made several in the past that just weren't any good. It just turned out to not be all that fun. I've got one that was I don't know why my brain always goes back to football. Just kind of how it is. I tried to make a football version of a dexterity game, and it was okay, meh. And I had a Rocket League game that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed working on that one. It was super simple. But so if anybody's listening to this and you know the people who hold the intellectual property rights to Rocket League, let me know. I've got a game for you. But no, this is I don't know, the third, fourth, maybe fifth dexterity game I had really worked on.
Yeah.
But this is the one that really clicked the most, and people have been having the most fun with.
How did you play it then? I mean, it sounds. I mean, I'm rubbish at dexterity. I mean, I own like a lot of the Catacombs kind of games, and I love playing them. I'm absolutely kind of atrocious at them. Really serious. I'm really bad. I'm kind of like one of these people that would. That maybe owns a set of golf clubs in the hope that one day, just by owning a set of golf clubs long enough, that I'll actually be good enough at playing golf. And it's the same with dexterity games. I love all these dexterity games. When it gets them down on the table, I mean, limbs have been lost when I've been playing dexterity games. I mean, it's been that kind of bad. But how would you play it? I mean, it sounds quite simple, but how would you go about playing it?
Yeah, so every player, you have your own faction, and each faction is a little bit different. It gives you a little bit different tech tree options, some different special abilities and things like that, just to make every player just a little bit asymmetrical, not too much. And then you've got, based on your faction, you have a certain number of dice, which are your spaceships. And some factions have D4s and D6s, some have D8s and D12s. It just kind of depends on which faction you get, what size dice you get. And you flick your ships around. The board is made up of 2 neoprene mats that go together and that create this kind of galaxy, and there's all these planets printed on the mats, and you flick your ships around the mats and the board and trying to land on planets and trying to build structures and take resources from those planets and use your dice to flick into other dice and to attack them. And I can explain the combat in a minute, as well as the way that works. And then there's like mission cards, some special objectives that you get victory points in the end. And so you're just kind of flicking your ships around and trying to take over the galaxy, trying to dominate other players by having more resources, more missions completed, more combat victories, and that kind of thing. And it takes about 60 minutes, and whoever has the most points at the end wins.
Did you have to strip a lot back? I mean, when you first started it, did you put in a lot more stuff than there was, knowing that you were doing like a 4X game?
Yeah, so originally the game, it didn't have dice. It was more similar to Catacombs, where it had tokens with I had 3D printed some ships to kind of sit on top of these plastic tokens. And so you'd flick the ship around, and the planets were these like big, thick wooden, big, thick pieces of wood, and then had like a sticker of a planet on top. And you would have to like flick your ship and touch the planet, and then you'd be on the planet. And that was okay. But then whenever I originally I went to cards, where you'd have to flick dice around. I decided, once I figured out the combat system, it was like, okay, dice works a lot better. And so using your dice, and you'd have to flick them on top of cards. And so you'd kind of set up the galaxy would be as big as you wanted it to be. And so like as big as your table was, could be as big as the galaxy, which is a little bit problematic for people who aren't good at dexterity, because the farther away things are, the more difficult it is, right?
Yeah.
And so, going to the neoprene mats was a huge, huge upgrade. But yeah, working with the dice is a lot of fun, because this is something I haven't seen. If it does exist, I haven't seen it with dexterity games where, all right, so if I've got my die and you've got yours kind of over across the galaxy, so to speak, I can flick my die and attack yours. And the way that works is you announce that, say, okay, I'm going to attack, this ship's going to attack that ship. And you take, you have combat cards, and so, you you place one face down, and that's going to give you like an attack bonus. And then I would flick my die, and whatever number of pips is up, that's my current attack value. So I have to hit your die first of all. So if I miss, I just go off and I'm lost in space.
Yeah.
I am the family Robinson disappeared.
Danger.
But if I hit you, okay, that's a successful attack. And so let's say I've got a 4 showing and you have a 6 showing. Okay, well, you're winning right now. And then we'd flip those cards over, and then we'd get the attack bonus. And whoever wins after the cards, so that's the ship that wins. And whoever wins stays, the other ship gets blown up and goes back to their home planet. And so using that as a very quick, simple combat system has worked really well. But then I ran into the challenge of, well, what if people want to flick the crap out of things? This is the issue with Catacombs, right? Some people just like flip the ever-loving mess out of those tokens, which is why they had to build that wall. You have to have that like cardstock wall that goes around the board now, so you didn't end up with all these tokens under your fridge and under your couch, and your cat's playing with them on the floor now.
Exactly.
And so I had to think through, like, design-wise, well, how do you fix that problem where you discourage people from just flicking the mess out of stuff? And so created this mechanism where there's this hyperspace card, and it's just a normal poker-sized card, and it just has hyperspace, has some cool graphics on it, and that goes behind whatever die you're trying to attack, goes directly behind it. And now if I flick my die and it hits yours, and it hits it with so much force that your die goes beyond that card, so the card is really just a measurement tool, but if your die goes beyond that card, then effectively I came in too hot. You saw me coming, and you jumped to hyperspace, and you retreated automatically. And the battle doesn't ever happen. And if the die goes past that card, you now get to place your die anywhere you want to in the galaxy. So if you were hoping to go to this other planet on the next turn, well, just pick it up, put it on that planet. Yeah. You jump to hyperspace to get to that planet to get away from the combat. And so that really incentivizes like being measured and really kind of taking your time and placing shots as opposed to just flicking the crap out of stuff and hoping for the best. And so it was really interesting to kind of create these systems, and it's been a lot of fun.
And then as you said, you kind of like you're stripping them back a bit to kind of get back to kind of like what was the kind of the core of the game, because I can see something like that otherwise turning into a 4-hour game and people having to go to the ER with broken tendons and stuff like that, and nails and just general kind of nonsense. Have you had like a kind of like a playtest kind of strategy then? I mean, when you were going to be taking it out, and obviously Kickstarter is, when it's a publisher, I guess you just have to say to the publisher, well, tell you what, if they like it, they enjoy it, they kind of get the gist of the game, then they're likely to sign it. Obviously, taking it to Kickstarter, you've got to persuade several hundred and potentially a couple of thousand people to look at it and do that. So have you? I mean, what has you been approached to Kickstarter with? Because where you're based, you can't just like jump in the number 27 bus and take a trip up north to take it about a lot of places. Have you ended up having to kind of to kind of strategize how you're going to kind of get the playtesting done, and have you ended up kind of taking the Final Flicktier on almost like a tour to get kind of people's interest in it?
Yeah, so doing a couple different things. One, where I live now, I no longer live in the yellow house across from the horse field next to the soccer field. I live on campus at a high school. I teach English, and there's a lot of other American teachers here that love board games. And so I've got a really good rotation of about 6 people who come in and will help me play test games. And every Sunday night, we've got this kind of standing meetup, basically, where they come in. My wife's a great cook, and so she cooks us all dinner. They get free food, and I get some free play testing. And it's been working out really well. And I knew the game was going to be something special. Yeah. Whenever I had those teachers coming up to me later, the next day, the week after, and talking about the game and say, hey, I can't wait to play again. When can we schedule another play test? And talking about different strategies and things they're going to do different next time to maybe do a little bit better. I knew the game had some legs. Whenever people come up to you and say that kind of stuff, because they don't have to, right? They could just come for the free food. That's fine. But when they were actively saying, hey, I want to play it again, I knew the game was gonna be something special. And then with my podcast, I've built up such a really awesome community that a couple weeks ago I put out a call and I said, hey, if anybody wants to play test this, tell me your email address. I will email you the print and play files, and we'll go from there. And so putting together the print and play and getting it out to those folks, and just getting data. Which faction is winning? Is one faction a little bit more overpowered than another?
Yeah.
Just getting that balancing, tweaking data here at the end. That's the stage it's in. It's about 94% done. I'm still working on some expansions, some other factions I'd like to add to the game. Those still need to have some more testing. But it's to the point now. It's like, okay, does this need to be a 1 or a 2? As far as the game balance goes. And I feel like that's a really good place to be. And all those awesome playtesters through my community are helping me get the game across the finish line.
In terms of, say, the kind of the finish of the game, the graphics of the game. I mean, I'm looking at it now. It looks stunning. But again, is that the kind of an extra step that you've had to take in order to get it prepared for Kickstarter? I can imagine that obviously with the college game, if the idea was really, really sound, then if you said, well, here's the idea for the art, they would say, brilliant, let's, we can develop that further. With Kickstarter, you've got to go there almost nowadays with kind of like the fully kind of finished project. Yeah. So did you have to develop the game further to get it to a point where you could say, actually, I can set this in front of people, they'll be able to play it, and it holds up as looking like a fully completed, finished product with all the art and everything like that as well?
Oh, yeah. That's just the nature of the industry now. Like, you can't go to Kickstarter and not have a great-looking game that, at least a giant percentage of the art's already done. Now, in my case, 100% of the art is done. Unless something crazy and I decide randomly to add another expansion faction or something like that, the art's done. The graphic design is almost done. And so I'm going into the Kickstarter launch ready to go. 100%. Like, it could almost go to the manufacturer to be printed tomorrow kind of thing. And that's just kind of where we're at. Now, one thing that helps me is that the game didn't require that much art. I mean, it needed a bunch of planets and a bunch of alien races and, the box art and stuff like that. But overall, I didn't have 100 cards. I'm not doing a deck builder where I need all these extra cards and all these assets and things like that. And so that's one thing for a lot of people that they just don't think about. Whenever someone says, hey, I want to make a game and go to Kickstarter, I'll say, well, how many games have you Kickstarted? Well, 0. Okay, well, be careful that first game is not something that needs $10,000 worth of art. Yeah, because that's going to be very difficult to do. Right, you're going to have to pay for a lot of that out of pocket on the front end, and you might not even fund, and so you might not see any of that money ever again. And so and you might fund and still see no money. Right, it's just kind of the nature of the business. You might make $100,000 on Kickstarter and then lose money overall if you don't do everything just right. And so, yeah, I'd say that's one thing people need to be a little more careful of is like designing games, especially your first or second game, to go to Kickstarter that don't need that much art. Because it's such a sunk cost at the beginning, and if you don't do it right, people aren't going to back your game anyway. They're going to say, this doesn't look professional. It doesn't look like the other stuff out there. And so it's something to really take into account.
I mean, in your opinion, is Kickstarter a much more difficult thing for the guys that have the good ideas but maybe not the best execution in order to present their pitch? Because, I mean, that's what you're doing nowadays. Is that you're not just coming up with an idea. You're almost like, it's like, what do you call it, your Dragon's Den or Werven's Lair of this kind of world where you can't just go in with an idea and a kind of a potential kind of success rate. You've almost got to go in and say, well, actually, this is ready to go. I'm kind of good to go. Do you think we're potentially missing out on some very, very good games where the guy just says, like, this isn't my skill set, I can't do this, or I need to get the money in order to be able to get the art kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I think we're definitely missing out on some great ideas. Just in the nature of the beast, so to speak, marketing is so pivotal for this, and there's a lot of people who are creative who are not very good at marketing, right? There's a lot of people who are super amazing designers who suck at social media, right? And just don't understand Facebook ads, and they don't understand like how to build an email list and like what does that look like, and they have no idea, and they've got amazing ideas. And for those folks, Kickstarter is probably not the place to go. Unless you want to hire somebody. Like if you got some other friends that can kind of come alongside you and work as a team, yeah, to go do that. But if you're trying to do this by yourself and you don't have a grasp of building an audience, building a base, building up that marketing machine, it's going to be very, very difficult to be successful. But that's where, pitching to publishers comes in. That's what they have, people that work for them that do marketing and do the graphics and do all that stuff. Yeah. And so we're probably missing some games, but maybe not that many. Not as many as we used to, back in the day where a publisher had to sink a bunch of money into something they weren't sure about. Yeah. Right. And they were a lot more reluctant to sign games, where now you have Kickstarter and you can kind of see the temperature in the market right right at the beginning, like before you put really that much money into it. And so I feel like we're in a much better place now to make sure as many great games get to the table as possible. But at the same time, the barrier to entry is so low, you end up with a lot of mediocre games as well. And so it's this really weird spectrum we're in right now, where some of the greatest games that have ever been made are coming out, but also some of the worst games that have ever been made are coming out too. And so it's, I don't know, it's a tough spot.
It's difficult because I've seen games that I've seen games that people have got in their hands once the Kickstarter kind of fuss has kind of died out, and they're actually turning around and going, this is okay, but it's maybe not as amazing as I thought it was going to be, based on the fact there was so many kind of people that kind of backed it and so many people that kind of played it. And on the backing side of things, Kickstarter still remains a mystery to me. I've spoken to so many kind of Kickstarter creators now, and I still can't put my hand on heart and look at a game and say, right, you're definitely going to fund, or you're definitely not going to fund, kind of thing. Because there's games out there at the moment that I know are really, really good and that I've played, and they just don't seem to be getting the traction. And yet there's other games that it's the same thing, and I'm just like going, yeah, they should do quite well, and they're just rocketing. Stratospheric kind of funding targets have been reached. With targets in mind, it doesn't look like your game's going to be is going to have massive kind of production costs in terms of how you're kind of putting it together. I mean, was that something you were conscious of, being kind of exposed to kind of like designers, the kind of the people that you have contact with? Did you take advice on kind of like the best way forward to consider for kind of what potential costs could be for the components within the game?
Yeah, definitely. And like, this is something, like, if I was doing a miniatures game, I would not do Kickstarter at all. Like, I have no understanding whatsoever of like that process and the costs that go into it. No clue. And so, like, I've got a game, my superhero game. It's got miniatures and the little superheroes flying around the board and stuff. I would never kickstart that at this point in my understanding of the industry. It would just be a disaster on the back end. Like, it would fund and I would lose like $50,000 because I have no idea what all goes into that. And so, yeah, with this game, it's dice, it's neoprene mats and cards. I mean, it's in a box, and so that's pretty straightforward. I've talked to a lot of people about not so much the component side of things, but the fulfillment and shipping, and just trying to make sure I don't accidentally charge people $10 when I should have charged them $12, that kind of thing. Yeah. And just trying to save myself from losing a bunch of money. This is one of the situations I'm perfectly fine with breaking even here. I just don't want to lose money. This is a learning process. I'm trying to understand this whole Kickstarter machine better and do this right the first time, but then learn a lot and then be able to come back and do it again bigger and better next time. So maybe down the road I do a bigger game. I do something with kind of some more custom pieces and stuff like that in it. But we'll see.
And with you kind of knowing and obviously speaking to kind of manufacturers and your post Kickstarter kind of pledge manager people. Has that allowed you to kind of, have you been able to go back to these people and say, okay, this is where we are and this is what I'm thinking about? So, are you thinking about things like are you thinking about pledge managers and things like that after the campaign, because you've talked to people about it? Have you got, have you thought about that thing? I mean, is that the kind of the state, you must be in that kind of stage of planning where you've obviously decided your entire strategy for the campaign, because it doesn't seem to just be nowadays when the last seconds, like the last sands of time, pour out the kind of like the Kickstarter glass. It still seems to keep going in some campaigns. They still have the pledge manager, which seems to run for kind of like months, if not years afterwards, where they're still kind of collecting money and collecting pledges. Is that something that you're taking into consideration as well? I mean, are you looking? I guess it's something you have to consider.
Yeah, definitely. And I've got a friend named Kirk that created his own pledge manager a while back to kind of for his own stuff, and then he started releasing it out to other people to use, called Jetbacker. And I like it a lot. It's very simple. There's some out there, BackerKit, CrowdOX. Those things are amazing systems. I highly recommend those. Check those out. But if it's your first campaign and you only got one game and you're not having like all these like bundles and all these add-ons and stuff like that, and you might not need it. And that's where I'm at right now. I don't have all this extra stuff. It's just one game, and so Jetbacker is a much more streamlined, much more simple version. If you don't have all the bells and whistles going into your game, you probably don't need that for your pledge manager. And so I'm going to use Jetbacker just because it's so much easier. And then Kirk, he's a friend. He's been on the show a couple of times, and he's helping me with some other stuff with the campaign and just kind of making sure he's run several campaigns himself, and so he's helping me with some consulting, basically, and making sure I don't accidentally again like charge 10 when I should charge 12 for shipping and things like that. And so,
and are you looking at kind of like in terms of things like stretch goals? Are you just going for kind of cosmetic kind of improvements, or are you actually going down the line of saying, okay, you can buy extra expansions, or if we reach this stretch goal, then we unlock 3 other factions for the game kind of thing? Or you just try to keep it kind of as simple as you can?
Yeah, it's more simple than complex, for sure. Definitely looking at things more along the aesthetics, thicker cards or, better looking, just kind of make the game look better, a better production overall. And then I've got 2 expansion factions that will be stretch goals, more than likely. I'm still working through that right now, but as of right now, that's the plan. And so having those as part of the stretch goals, but, those don't add very many components, just a few dice and some cards to the game. And so, because a lot of things that you do as stretch goals add a lot of extra weight, and you add extra weight, and you're adding extra shipping costs, and it's just, you got to be aware of that. And that messes up a lot of people's planning, is, they had everything planned out, and then they added too many stretch goals, added metal coins or something like that, and made the game weigh a pound more than
Dinosaur Island.
It's supposed to. Yeah, no doubt.
Dinosaur.
So
I still do the Dinosaur Island. Did you get Dinosaur Island?
No, a friend of mine did, and it's amazing. But I remember when it came in the mail. I was at their house when it came in, and my friend, she said, "Feel how heavy this box is." And I went to pick it up, and it's like I had to double take. I was like, "Oh goodness gracious, this is so heavy!" But that box is full of stuff, and but yeah, it's just something to be aware of.
Yeah, I was at the Games Club, and I was at the Games Club, and I had Dinosaur Island with me, and I was like, "Feel the weight of this box." And of course, everybody the natural thing is to reach out with one hand. Like,
you're right. Poor choice.
You need 2. You need 2 hands. And they're like, no, it's just give me the box. Give me the box. And it's like, woomph. It's just like dislocated arms going left, right, and centre and stuff like that. That was a kind of a heavy packed box. But that's like a common debate at the moment, is the whole thing about charging shipping after the kind of the Kickstarter, as opposed to charging shipping in the Kickstarter. And it's that whole kind of it's like getting free shipping on Amazon and eBay, basically. And the reason it's kind of being encouraged, and we always bring this up, is like if people include shipping in the Kickstarter campaign, it means that Kickstarter takes a chunk of that shipping money as well.
10%.
Exactly. So if they're saying we need to reach $10,000 and that'll include the shipping, don't complain about it, because that guy's technically taking 10% of money that he's going to be using to ship. So he's going to have to take, they are going to have to take that money out of their back pocket in order to potentially subsidise the shipping, which is why people ship, do the shipping costs after the kind of the event. And I know people hate it, but it's
yeah, and it's just one of those things that it's psychological more than anything. When you think a game, like it says the rewarded, and it costs $39. You're like, oh, cool, $39. Yeah. And then you find out later that shipping is $15. It's like, oh, okay, so it's not actually $39. It's just psychological, right? Yeah. But I tell you what, there's been so many people who charge shipping during the campaign, and then because the game didn't ship for a year and shipping rates changed a year later, that everything was different. Or the stretch goals added to, all these different stretch goals, and so the 2-pound box became a 3-pound box, and that put them in the next tier of cost. And so, there's been a lot of people who've been really messed over by shipping. And so I fully understand.
Yeah, I totally understand as well.
Charging it after the fact. Especially now that I'm looking at my own, I was like, wow, I'm going to have, like you were just saying, I'm going to take 10%. Yeah. Kickstarter's going to take 10% right off the bat off of shipping and everything. It's like, well, wouldn't it make more sense to put it in a pledge manager? But with my game, I'm not adding all these extra stretch goals and things like that, so the weight shouldn't be changing more than just a handful of ounces if I add all that extra stuff in. And then plus the game, it's pretty much done. And so it's almost ready to go to the manufacturer now. And so it shouldn't take that much time to get it printed and shipped out. And so hopefully things won't change too much. So I'm leaning towards doing it in the campaign, just because it is that psychological thing, and people see it, and I can say free shipping, even though it's just subsidized into the cost, but kind of the way our brains work, we love that free word.
Yeah, I know.
Amazon has ruined us all, and but that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I know a lot. I have this discussion on a daily basis with people I kind of discuss kind of Amazon with, and the same. But it's not free shipping. It's like, I know it's not free shipping, but why am I saying it's free shipping? Because people like to see the word free. That's why they're spending money. they're spending money that they shouldn't be spending. So they like to say at least I got free shipping, because that's a kind of a little bit of a bonus there. With the production in mind, then, of you setting, when you're considering kind of like your delivery window, your fulfillment window for your backers, knowing what you know, are you kind of thinking, well, let's do a kind of let's do a bigger window and then surprise everybody? Let's kind of undersell and kind of over deliver kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do not be optimistic whatsoever with shipping. Never, ever. I've talked to so many people, and they all tell me the exact same thing. Whatever you think shipping is going to be, add 2 or 3 months, if not 6.
Exactly.
Just because that's the nature. And so, like right now, I'm thinking, if my game comes out if it optimistically could come out in March or April, then I'm going to tell people May or June.
Yeah.
Right. Just to make sure, because it's funny how people going in knowing that this is the case, but then get super upset when things get delayed for various reasons that typically aren't even in the creator's control, right? A strike happens at the port, and now nothing can come in, or things get caught up in customs, or there's a tropical storm, or something like that. Exactly. It has nothing to do with what the creator hoped for, or what they planned for, and things change. And so with shipping, I would definitely say whatever you think it is, add 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, but then I kind of always have a chuckle with the ones that come out at the beginning of the year, and they talk about, well, Chinese New Year has hit us, so the factory's going to shut down for
right,
for
all
this
of
long.
February. February is a lost month.
And they're like going, oh, sorry about this, guys. But then that's because, they time at the beginning, they say, okay, well, it finishes, we finished up on July, and then we're taking it to production, and then, those trays that were going to get developed, because we got these stretch goals and we had to then develop the trays, that's pushed us back into November, and we're waiting for some more art because we hit another 3 stretch goals, and that's pushed us into January, and the factory's going for February. So that's it, and I see it again and again and again.
Absolutely.
But it depends, because I think I've been talking about this recently, about it depends on the Kickstarter backers who are involved in it, because you get guys that are like, if it's an IP, then I tell you, God help you. Because these guys, I saw like the latest one, the Horizon Zero Dawn video game, which I love with a passion. But then I seen it like board game. Yeah, and I seen it like 2020 was the delivery window, and I was like, people were going 2020. That's like 2 years. It's like yes, because you've seen they did Dark Souls, and we seen what happened with Dark Souls. So they're not, they're not being difficult. They're just being incredibly honest with you.
Yeah, and being realistic. Because, anytime you work in IP, everything you do is subject to their approval.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can't just put a game out. Like, you have to make everything and then send it to them, and it gets approved, or maybe not, and you have to change something. You have to fix something they didn't like.
Yeah.
And then that kind of starts the process over, and it's this round and round and round kind of thing, and it just takes forever.
Yeah.
Because it becomes very corporate. You're not just doing your game. You're doing a game that represents their brand as well, and so they want to protect their brand, and it just takes a while.
Yeah. That reminds me of the story about planes, trains, and automobiles, where it cost an absolute fortune for them to make, because no car hire company, no airplane company, not even any train company refused to allow them to put their logos or use their stock, because the whole thing is about all these travel things going wrong. So that was a real thing, that the budget for that film was so high, because basically the movie studio had to invent all of these new kind of airplane companies and stuff like that, because no travel company would say, no, you can't use our logo, we're protecting our IP there. So it barely made any money, even though it was very, very successful, because they basically had to buy up railway in order to film some parts of the thing. But price wise, in order to buying up things, have you settled on a price? Are you still kind of ironing out the final
Yeah,
figures?
So we're about a month away from the launch right now, and so things are still subject to change. But it's going to be around $45 for a U.S. copy of the game. International still looking probably. It'd probably be $45, and then for the international $45, and the shipping will get tacked onto that. So we'll see what that looks like. For the UK, it's looking like $12-ish, $15-ish or so, depending on. I'm still waiting to get some more fulfillment quotes back, just to kind of make sure I get the best price working with the best company. working with Quartermaster Logistics, so I want to give them a shout out. They do a lot to sponsor my podcast. So I want to rep them as much as I can. QMLogistics.com. They're awesome. I've had nothing but a phenomenal experience working with them, getting all these numbers in and quotes. And they're super quick about responding to things, and highly recommend their service. But yeah, it's probably going to be around the $45 range.
Which, funnily enough, from Kickstarter is really inexpensive nowadays, because I'm looking at games that are going out there.
Yeah, so many $100 campaigants. You know, it's like, this is crazy.
Man gotta eat, and it looks like man gonna eat cardboard. Because just because I was looking at, I'm not going to name names because I don't want to shame them, but it's been well, okay, we just talked about Horizon Zero Dawn, but I mean, I hummed and had, and I just went, I can't, Gabe, I couldn't press the button on it. I wanted to because it looks fantastic, but then I'm thinking,
no, it looks great.
It looks fantastic. It's just, but then I was like, I've not seen the kind of the rules, and I'm not sure, are they going to kind of be developing it, and you know, and the miniatures look fantastic, and it's another one of these things I'd have it, and it's like, but it is so much money, especially with the way that like 4 or 5 years ago, when, you know, $100 was equal to, like, say, maybe £64, that's fine. But now $100 is equal to £85, so there's a massive kind of jump up. So when I look at these campaigns, I'm just like, but I've noticed that we seem to be creeping into $125 for a Kickstarter campaign, which...
Yeah, it's becoming more normal. I mean, especially with all the CMON games that have 75 miniatures and like all these crazy art. I mean, they look phenomenal. But yeah, they're $100, $150. And you're taking a risk because you don't really know, is the game good? Like, you're not entirely sure. And so every time you back a Kickstarter, you're hoping that it's going to be good. You're hoping that if you read through the rules, you're hoping that the rules turn into a good game, and that the preview videos and the playthrough videos, they all turn out to be the game that you want. But you're still taking a risk. And so if you're risking $39 or $45, something like that, that's a little bit easier to swallow than risking $100 or $150. And so,
well, I mean, to me, if you're saying 45, I'm instantly going, so that's about 37 quid. If I kind of work out at 38 quid, that's not bad. You know, I can't even get a new video game for that nowadays. So that's kind of like,
true.
If it's something that's interesting me, then I'm probably going to be interested, and I'm probably going to, think, well, actually, I'm going to take a punt. As I say, either that or I multiply it by 3 and get a latest big, huge miniatures game, which, as you say, it's easier for me to dissect the kind of the game. I mean, in terms of, say, like previews and stuff, what are your thoughts on previews? I mean, are they a good thing, or are they something that... Because people say, you need to have previews there, you need to have people doing kind of, preview videos, or you need to have people that are writing up kind of previews of your game in order to get kind of people kind of interested. Do you think they're any use? I mean, I've got my own 2 cents on this, but, do you think...
No, and I'd love to hear your opinion in just a second. I would say... You need at least 1, but I wouldn't do more than 2. Like, I've seen some campaigns that have like 10. It's like, what are you doing? Like, why? Like, does that many people, like, with different voices, I guess, different angles, I guess, but they're all just previewing your game, because a preview is very different from a review, right? So a preview, you're typically paying someone to put your game out there on camera and say nice things about it, talk about how it plays and that kind of thing. And that's great. I think that's important to have as a marketing tool, just so people can see that. And you can also get into their whoever you're having to preview, whether it's Tantrum House or Man vs. Meeple or whoever. They've got a pretty big base of subscribers, and so not only are you able to put that content on your Kickstarter page, but you're also able to get that in front of a lot of people to hopefully hear about your campaign that maybe otherwise wouldn't. So there's a couple things going on. But the people that have like 5 or 6 or 10 different previews, it's like, I feel like you just wasted a lot of money that didn't need to be wasted. And so, like, I would rather you put that money into the game, or put that money into subsidizing the shipping, or something, making the game a little bit cheaper, something like that, as opposed to having all these previews. So I do think they're valuable, but maybe not as valuable as some people think they are.
I think it's validation. Again, this is something that comes up with me being, my job is I'm involved in kind of sales and marketing and all lots of wonderful, boring stuff, which I'm not going to go into just now. But people are looking for validation when they're, when they're going to be considering a game. I don't really watch. I'll look at a Kickstarter gameplay video because I want to see how it plays. I'll be less likely to look at a preview video with somebody giving a kind of opinion. We write, and I do write myself. I write little preview pieces for Kickstarter games, but I call them first thoughts. I don't even put the word preview on the front because it's just me. I've maybe played the game 3, 4 times, 5 times. I've not put. I'm just saying, well, this is what I think. Kind of an idea. It's not a kind of like this isn't a preview kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if. Would you ever put a slightly negative preview on your Kickstarter campaign? Is it not just 5 or 10?
If it's a preview, then the opinion shouldn't even be really in there. I mean, I guess if somebody wants to go above and beyond and go, hey, I know this is a paid preview, but I really did enjoy this game. If they want to kind of preface it and say, hey, this is also my actual opinion, but they're more likely not going to be negative, right? But if it's a review and it's not pretty positive, I wouldn't put it out there. I wouldn't. I mean, that just gives people a reason not to back, right? And you're basing that off one person, right? It's what's unfortunate kind of about certain reviewers. If they don't like it, well, that's a whole giant audience of people that go, oh, okay, I don't like it either. It's like, well, maybe. You're assuming that reviewer likes the same kind of games as you do, and maybe they do. Maybe you've kind of vetted that person to go, okay, this game or this person likes these kind of games, so do I, and so we kind of have the same taste in games, so I really trust their opinion, but not always, right? And so, if something's not pretty positive, I wouldn't put it out there. But also, if it's not pretty positive, you might want to step back and go, why am I making this game? Like, do I need to change some things? Do I need to alter some things? Do a little more playtesting, something like that?
No, absolutely. I think, I mean, if you're cherry picking, of course, you always want to cherry pick people kind of being positive about what you're creating. But then, as you said, if you're getting a couple of people that are still bringing it up and saying, well, that was fine, but, this part of this rule book, this rule wasn't entirely clear, or I didn't like the way this kind of mechanic worked because it kind of affected the game kind of further down the line, and it's a case of, well, maybe you should be kind of looking. But it's difficult because I always say the same phrase about being too close to the coalface, which is you're so close in on the project, it's really, really difficult to take a step back and say, well, is this actually kind of something that's kind of work? But the biggest thing around it is obviously the audience building. So has that been easy for you, doing the audience building, based on the fact that you're obviously you're obviously gonna have people you can reach out to and be aware of, and you've got your own audience already. Have you found that easier than you'd say kind of your normal kind of Kickstarter creators?
Yeah, definitely. So, like a lot of people, if you're going to go to Kickstarter for the first time, you probably need to start audience building at least 6 months ahead, if not a year. Right? Go ahead and start really building an audience, building an email list, building a first day backer group. You really want to do well on your first day to kind of get that momentum and do well in the Kickstarter algorithms, so you show up in different places on the page or the website. But with me, it's a little bit different. And so, like, I didn't really start marketing this game all that much until 3 months ago, 2.5, 3 months ago, something like that. Because I've already got a pretty decent size base of people. Now, what's going to be interesting, this is something I'm really curious to learn, is how many people that are subscribers to my email list and are listeners to my show and are members of the Facebook group, because you're talking, there's 2,000 members, a little more, like close to 2,100 at this point, members in my Facebook group. How many of those people are going to show up to back my game? Right? Is it 1%? Is it 5%? 10%? 20%? It's going to be a really interesting exercise, and something I'm really curious to learn is how many of these awesome people in this community want to back a game that I've made, right? Because the community is not about the game; it's about game design in general and the podcast and all this content. And so it's going to be cool to see, if people show up, or it's going to be really sad and tragic that none of them do, right? No, they're like, oh, we like your podcast, we don't care about your games. Okay, cool. It's good to know. It's good to fail, I guess, to learn. It's a good learning process. But we'll see.
It doesn't make it any easier, though, does it? It's not going to be
definitely not
like that.
Definitely not.
I mean, you're just going to be like that. And first, an announcement to all the people that helped me absolutely fail in my first Kickstarter campaign. Yes, I am very drunk, but you're all a bunch of. He's like, oh, sorry, we've lost Gabe there. I don't know what happened. He fell over. Launch date, sir. When are we going to be blasting off into the solar system and flicking disc and taking names and going into hyperspace and generally having fun, Captain?
No doubt. Final Flicktier coming to you on October 29th. On a Monday, not doing Tuesday. I feel like there's everybody and their mother wants to launch on Tuesday. I'm going to do Monday. Try to be a little bit against the grain. And that's another test. We'll see if that works out too. But October 29th. And
you're thinking round about the $45 mark?
Yep, give or take.
That's it. Excellent. If people have listened to along today, and they want to keep an eye on what you're up to, where do they find you on the interweb nets, Mr. Barrett?
Definitely. Everything I do is boardgamedesignlab.com. You can find the podcast on iTunes or whatever the Android version is. Was it Stitcher? Yeah, I'm on all the different podcast venues and whatnot. Board Game Design Lab. I've got right at 100 episodes. By the time this launches, I'll be over 100 episodes. And so, yeah, that's where you can find me. Facebook group as well, Board Game Design Lab community. It's an awesome place full of amazing people trying to make great games, trying to get better, trying to get feedback on what they're working on. And so if you're into game design at all and you want a place online to come find some really cool people and bounce ideas around, that's a great place as well.
What we'll do is we'll make sure that we take all of those links and we'll put them in the show notes so that we have notes to show. One more question, Squire, sir. Okay?
Yep.
You are disappearing on your 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, yeah?
Uh-huh.
I'm going to go with this. You're just going to have to buckle up. But
yeah, it's going to be great.
But on your journey, right, okay, the commissar takes you aside and says, tell you what, he says, you never guess what, I can get hold of any board games that you want just because you're going off on your 5-year journey. You've got to play well, you've got an entire ship of people while you're exploring and exterminating and all that stuff. But unfortunately, due to regulations and due to the size of your quarters, you're only allowed to take 3 with you. But you can have anything you want, any expansions, 1st edition, 2nd edition, anything you want. What would you take with you on your 5-year journey into space, Mr. Gabe Barrett, sir?
Yeah, for sure. First thing, if I could take D&D, I don't know if that fits inside the rules,
yes,
but D&D has so, I mean, it's infinite, right? You need one book and some character sheets, and you can play for decades. And so D&D would definitely be on the list. Time stories, assuming I could get all the current and future, if we could like magically 3D print all the latest.
They're all available. You get them all.
Expansions. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Love time stories. That's a lot of fun. And then I'm trying to think of the third one. Let me look at my shelf. Might go Eldritch Horror. Just because it's a ton of content, ton of expansions, ton of things to do there as well. Lots of story, lots of fun, lots of dice chucking and running around saving the world. So I think those would be my 3.
Excellent. Well, there he goes. He just, he goes to the replicator. Because it's, it's nothing to do. What would you call it? Something else. The reproducer, or whatever it's called. Gives you your little games. You put them in your little trolley. You get into the Starship Centerprise, and then you take off. There you go. Thank you very much for coming on, sir. This has been fun and a delight, and all those other words that begin with D. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to you've got social media all over the place. We're practically a brand now. But you can find us on Twitter at We're Not Wizards. You can find us on Facebook at We're Not Wizards. You can find us on our blog, which is we'renotwizards.blogspot.com, where people write words for us, and they write very nice words for us. You can find us on our website in general, which is we'renotwizards.com. You can find us on Instagram, where we put pictures. You can find us on Tumblr and YouTube, because our fabulous podcast host, Podbean, put our podcasts on Tumblr, which I have no idea what that's for. I have no idea. But they do put it on YouTube, which is really handy, because I understand a lot of people like to listen to their podcasts through YouTube. And they put it through kind of like Google Podcasts as well, and all these other podcast catchers, which I hope if you search for We're Not Wizards, you will find us on there. If you like what you've listened tonight, obviously jump on to the Board Game Design Lab and make sure you get yourself covered in lots and lots of Gabe, because it sounds like a good thing to do. But if you've also liked the show tonight and you want to listen to more of us, and there's about 200 of these things, it's ridiculous, go to obviously Apple Podcasts and click on the subscribe button. If you like us even more than that, then give us a rating or a review. And if you like us like really, really, really lots, and give us a rating or a review, remember the following rules, right? Don't give us 10 stars, because it makes us big-headed. But don't give us 1 star, because it makes us cry. Give us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average, and we are just a little bit average. But the person who's not been average tonight is rather wonderful, rather fantastic, Mr. Gabe Barrett. Yeah! I'm doing like Kermit the Frog, waving his arms in the air. There's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Gabe?
No, not as of yet.
That'll do, I suppose. I guess. and the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Gabe. Say goodbye, Gabe.
Y'all have a good one. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Excellent. It's been a delight. And
good luck with everything you got going on right now.
Oh, and thank you. And it's a goodbye from me. So remember, stay safe, roll6s.com, and 29th of October, yeah, if you get those fingers ready, you want to be doing like a training montage with Rocky. You want to be lifting weights with his index fingers. Because come the 29th of October, yeah, you're going to be pointing them to the tabletop, resting them on some neoprene. You're going to be flicking these bad boys as you take over space, and you take over time, and you take over entire galaxies, and it's all going to be round about the Final Flicktier. But until the next time, I don't know, just live long and prosper, guess.
There you go.
There you go. Bye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.